committee. Chairman Bernanke, I want to thank you for appearing before the committee today, and I thank you for your service, and I really mean that. Whether the members of this committee agree or disagree with the policies of the Federal Reserve Board, I think we all can agree that you have been tireless and steadfast in your efforts to use the Fed's tools to address the extraordinary economic circumstances that continue to confront our nation, and I thank you. Chairman, according to economist Mark Zandi, housing is ground zero for the economy's problems, high unemployment, and lost jobs. A recent Wall Street Journal editorial declared that housing is to the United States what Greece is to the Eurozone. Because just as the Eurozone won't prosper until Greece gets its act together, the United States recovery won't gain traction until the housing sector deals with the excesses of the past. From the Federal Reserve standpoint, you lowered interest rates first, locked the credit markets, and currently to spur borrowing and spending. But as one observer recently stated regarding your most recent round of bond buying, and I quote, "The Fed is trying to pump air into a balloon that has a big hole in it, and that balloon is called housing," end of quote. Mr. Chairman, how critical is the stabilization of the housing market to our economic recovery? And do you believe, Mr. Chairman, that we're doing enough to stabilize the housing market and end this foreclosure crisis that we're going through?
You make a very good point. As I discussed in my testimony, housing is very central to the situation we have now. Housing is usually a big part of the recovery process, and here it's just not doing anything. Moreover, many people are underwater. That's affecting them financially. Their loss of equity means that they are poor. They are less willing to spend. So addressing the housing situation is very, very important. And indeed, as you point out, the Fed has done a lot to bring mortgage rates down, but it's not very effective if people can't get a mortgage loan. So I think a lot could be done to address the mortgage and housing situation. I mentioned a few things, to Mr. Campbell earlier. Just to reiterate quickly, looking at the management of real estate owned by banks or by the GSEs to make sure that they are maintained, converted to rentals as appropriate, converted to rent-to-own, avoiding destabilization of neighborhoods from foreclosed houses, helping people who are underwater to refinance, removing unnecessary barriers to mortgage access. There are a whole range of things of getting Fed's future clarified so that people can plan and so that maybe the private sector will come back in and provide some more mortgage credit. I think there are a whole range of things, and I'm sure that you and your colleagues have other ideas, and I do think that relatively speaking, that some what would seem like small measures could actually have a very positive effect in housing and for the whole economy.
Would you agree that it's going to be almost impossible to resolve our economic situation when you've got people losing their houses at the rate they're losing them? I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, yeah.
Let me just ask you one other thing. Chairman, do you agree with Director Elmendorf that there is no inherent contradiction between implementing policies that would boost economic growth in the short term and implementing policies that would impose fiscal restraint several years from now?
I do agree with that. I mentioned that also in my testimony, that we should be looking simultaneously at long-term consolidation, long-term fiscal stabilization, at the same time trying to think about what actions we should take now to make sure the recovery continues.
And finally, Chairman, do you believe that given the fragile state of the United States economy, the most prudent course is to implement policies now that spur economic growth and implement fiscal consolidation once the economy has recovered?
Well, I think you can do them simultaneously if you have a strong, credible plan for consolidating the fiscal situation over the next few years, but also take whatever actions are necessary, and I'm not endorsing any specific one, but taking whatever actions are necessary to help the recovery in the near term.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Cummings.